record now. All right. So first thing I'm going to do is cd into if my computer. Oh, there we go. CD desktop CP challenges.
Could you make it a little bigger, please?
Yep. Thank you. Is that good or one more?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, cool. All right. So I've got all these different challenges. So I'm going to just make a directory, or actually I'm going to go ahead. Yeah, I'm going to make a directory first. So I'm going to make a directory called cars and brands. CD into cars and brands, list everything out. There's nothing in here. So the first thing I'm going to do is Python, create a virtual environment, -make venv. I'm going to list everything out. So I've got my little virtual environment right here. And now I'm going to install just the basics. I'm not going to use a Postgres database for this one. I'm just going to use a SQLite database just to keep things simple. Clear it. So I'm going to Python or pip install Django, pip install Django. I think that's all I need to do right now is install Django.
Are you in your virtual environment?
Nope. Thank you.
Before this, do we have the option between SQLite and Postgres for the assessment, or are you going to want us to focus on one or the other?
No, I don't. There isn't a, well, probably, I would say you don't need a Postgres database for the assessment. Because when we go to test it, it'll be a lot easier instead of having an install and all that stuff. But that's up to you. So, yep. Thank you, Jeremy. I need to go into my virtual environment. So source venv bin activate. Try that one more time. All right. Clear. And then I'm going to have to create a Django project. And that is Django admin start project. Let's just call it cars. Cars, brands. Yeah, let's call it that. So I can list everything out. Cool, I've got my cars, brands project right there. I'm going to open this up into a current VS Code window. I'm probably going to have to go back into my virtual environment because every time you reopen VS Code, you probably have to go back and do your virtual environment. So I've got my cars brands here. There's my cars brands project. Got my URLs, manage.py file. Great. So list everything out. Now I have to go into my virtual environment because it got lost or we got out of it. So there. Now we are ready to go. All right. So now what's the next step we have to do? Ashley.
Connect your app to in the settings.
So I haven't created an app yet. So that's probably the first thing I'll need to do is actually create an app. So I created my project. So I need to Python manage.py. What's the command to create a app? Anybody?
Start app.
Start app. Start app. And I don't even know what the cars brand app. I don't know. I'm just something like CB app. Uh-oh, what happened is, what did it say? Let's see what happened. So if I list everything out, all right. So it looks like I tried to run Python manage.py, and I'm currently not within the cars brands directory. So let's go into my cars brands directory, list everything out. There's my manage.py file. Let's try that one more time. Cool. So I've got my cars brand app, my cars brands project. Now I can go ahead and connect my CB app to my cars brands project. All right. So what's the next thing we should do? Like in the process of things. So we created a project. We created an app. We connected the app to the project. Now, what do you want to do?
Your database?
So, like down here in our database.
Yeah, you need to create it and then put it in the database.
So that's only if we're using a Postgres database. So we're going to just continue using the SQLite database just to make things simple. But if you'd like me, I could go ahead and make a Postgres database. Would you like me to? Anybody?
I would prefer if you did that just because it's what we've been doing. So.
Yep. That's perfect. All right. So yeah, let's go ahead and create a Postgres database. So what do I need to install in order to use a Postgres database?
Psychop G2.
Yep. So I'm going to clear pip install psychop G2. And have that installed.
Tom, is SQLite, is that just kind of like the default Django database? Is there anything you have to download to use that, or does it just come like readily prepared?
So we actually installed SQLite during Install Fest. So SQLite is literally just a file that enables us to run SQL commands on that file and grab data from that file. So that's all it really is. It's a very light database that's literally just a file that we can run raw SQL commands on.
So like typically we would probably run everything that we're doing in SQLite because it doesn't really require Postgres.
If it's on your local machine and you're just trying to get something up and running just to see if it works, yeah. But when you're actually like deploying something to like Heroku or AWS or Microsoft Azure, then you would actually need preferably a like Postgres database, like a NoSQL database.
All right, thank you.
So yeah, like SQLite is literally just a database to get up and running on your local machine. It's not supposed to be used in production at all because it's literally just a file. And I can kind of show you if I, if I actually like start and run the server or migrate with a SQLite, you'll actually see, let's actually do that real quick. I'm not going to connect the Postgres database yet. I'm just going to do Python manage.py migrate. So I'm going to migrate all the existing. See now, notice how we got this little db.sql3. That's the SQLite file. And that's where all your stuff is going to be stored. So if I were to delete this file, it's like me deleting the database. So if I had stuff stored in there, I literally just deleted like everything in there.
Did you say Postgres was a NoSQL database?
No, it's a SQL database.
Okay.
Did I say that? If I did, that
Yeah.
is 100% wrong.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and create that database, create DB on our local machine. Let's just call it cars brands. So I created that database and I can test it by running cars brands or PSQL cars brands. I'm in that cars brands database and there's no relations in here. So now I can connect that database to Postgres, or I'm sorry, to my Django. So it's a PostgreSQL, and the name of the database is cars brands. All right, so I connected. I'm going to be using a Postgres database, and the name of that database is cars brands. All right, so we created a Postgres database. We connected that Postgres database to our Django app. Now what's the next step in the process?
Create your models.
URLs?
Yep, let's create some models. Whoop. So we can do, we need to create two classes, the class brand, which inherits from the models model class in Django. And this should be relatively simple. Let's just keep it simple. It's going to have a model name, or should we call it main name or manufacturer? let's just call it name for right now. And it's going to be a char field. Whoop. Max length. And I don't really know. Let's just make it 100 right now. That's really all we need for the brand. So like Chevrolet, Tesla, Ford, Nissan, Honda. That's what the brand is. I'm going to do a string, under string, just so if we ever print it off, we can self.name. All right. Questions about creating the brand model. All right. So the next class we'll create is the car class. And that's the model. And then we can actually have like the model name, which is like, you know, what is it? Impala, Altima, you know, F430, I don't know. So we can say models dot, that can also be a char field. Max length is, just make that 255. And now a car belongs to a model. I'm sorry, a car belongs to a brand. So this is where we actually have a foreign key, brand equals models dot foreign key. And that is the brand. We can do on delete. So when we delete the brand, we also want to delete all the cars associated with that brand. And then we can have a related name. Is it cars? So brands dot, so if we go from brands to cars. So yeah, what does the related name do?
It allows brand to access cars.
Yep. So it allows brands to access cars, because right now, if I do car.brand, I can get the brand. But what if I want all the cars that's associated with a brand? So I can grab the brand, and then I can do .cars, because it's the related name, .all, and I can grab all the cars associated with that. And I'm going to do an under string.
Can I ask, does it always make sense to utilize a dunder string method for your models?
It's not, it's just easier. It's not 100% required. What it is good for, I would say yes, only because if we have a drop down menu in our whether you're accessing the admin panel or from a drop down menu in one of our templates, it'll display like the object. Like, so if you use a dunder string, it actually print out like the name versus like the object. And we can show you kind of what that looks like with and without the dunder string. But yeah. Self dot car or model. All right. I think that's all we need to do right now. So what questions do you all have about the simple car brand schema?
If you wanted to model like the new Supra was made by Toyota and BMW in conjunction, if you like, what modification would you have to make if you wanted to take into consideration stuff like that?
So it'd be a many-to-many relationship then?
Yeah.
It'd be like a many-to-many field, and then yeah, it'd have to be a many-to-many field. And I don't remember off the top of my head what this looks like. But it's relatively the same. So you can like, if I opened up the docs, where is it? So Django many to many. So yeah, it'd be a many to many. would it be, it wouldn't just be this. You can do like through if you wanted to, but I think that might be it. Let's see, foreign key. Or would that be that would be a no, yeah, that'd be a many to many relationship. So yeah, it'd be pretty much like so, unless you had a through table. So if you don't need a through table, it'd just be looks like something like that. But you could also create like a class like brand cars or whatever, and then you would have brand down here as well. So this is if it's like a many to many relationship. It'd be like car, and then it'd be like models dot foreign key. So this would associate with that. And then instead of here, so you'd have like the foreign key here with all the information. You'd have the brand here with the foreign key that's associated with the brands, but on here it'd be through brand cars because you're going through a different table. But
doesn't Django like automatically create that for you if you use the many to many field?
yes, so the reason why you might want to have the through table is if you wanted additional fields in there. And so instead of so if I had the class like brand cars, models.model, if I had like the cars here and the brand here, if I wanted to add like some other additional fields here, like I don't even know like what else I would add here because this doesn't really would warrant a through table. But if I wanted to add something else, the hell?
Gotcha.
I thought that Django only created something for you if you use like default or something inside of your query, or not your query, but your yeah, the foreign key. But like something in it, like you can like set it to default instead of like setting it to like cars or something like your related name.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what that's referring to.
Maybe I'm mistaken. I was thinking of something I thought maybe.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. All right, so we've got our brand, we have our car model. Next, what should we do?
Make migrations.
Yep. All right. So Python manage.py, make migration, make migrations. All right, cool. So we've applied the create model brand, create model car. And if we look into our migration scripts, here's that script that we just created. So we're creating two models, brand with these fields, create another model car with these fields. There's our migration script. So great, we created our migrations. Now what do we need to do?
I agree.
Yep, Python manage.py, migrate. And there we go. And now if I PSQL, CB, or is it cars, brand, whatever, what's the name of my database? Cars, brands. And I do see all the different relations. I can see all the different tables I've created. All right. And
Do we only create a Postgres like just so we can see the data like on the table like that? Is that the only reason why we've been doing that?
no, we've just been creating it just so we get used to creating Postgres databases. Yep.
Like in the real world, do they have us create Postgres databases like when you like Django, like for the most part, most of the time?
Yeah, you'll definitely have like a real, whether it's a Postgres database, a MongoDB database, a MySQL database, you'll definitely be creating databases in the real world. Now, 99% of the time, you won't be creating a database from scratch. You'll be working in an existing code base that has already a database created for you. And it's just up to you to run all the scripts to create those databases on your local machine and seed all the data for it. All right. So we created our models. What's next? What's the next step in the process?
And create your paths.
Create our URLs.
Yeah.
Yep. So we can create our URLs. I'm going to get rid of that. Yep. So inside of our URLs, inside of our Django project, we can include path. We'll just go to brands / and then include cbapp.urls file, which we have yet to create yet. So the next, inside of our cars brand app, we can create our urls.py file. And let's import path. We'll also want to import some views. So from the parent directory, import all the views, which we have yet to create yet. So URL patterns equals, and now we can create our path to just brands / we want to grab all the brands. So we'll say views, brands, and the name of that is brands. So let's just create that one. And next, I'm going to close this out, close that out. And next, we'll, inside of our views, we'll go ahead and from models, import the brand model and the car model. And so here we'll create a method brands, which is this view method that takes in the request. And this is only responsible for displaying all of the brands inside of the web page. So we can say all brands equals brand.objects.all, because we're grabbing all the brands from the database. Then we want to render the request, and then whatever template we want from there. So we can render like the template /brands.html file, and then a dictionary, all brands. All right. So that's that. So we created our first view. Now we actually have to create our actual templates. So we can say inside of here, create our templates. And in here, should I switch out? I'm going to actually, let's see if I do, should I do brands? And then inside of here, just want to see if this will work. We'll do our, actually disregard that. I'm just going to do everything inside of templates. Brands.html.
So the assessment won't involve React, Tom?
Only if you want to.
Okay.
Yep. So in here, I'm going to do HTML. We've got this. And now I'm just gonna say like H1 brands. I just want to see if this actually renders anything. So if I run the server, Python manage.py, run server. All right, nothing's broken. Where did that new tab go? I go to localhost 8000. So brands. Uh-oh. What happened? Template brands.html does not exist. Templates brand. Let's see what I got wrong. Does anybody see? Do I need this here?
Did you set your
Oh.
templates? Okay.
There we go. So yeah, I don't need that templates there. Cool. So let's go ahead and kill the server and create a super user and add some cars and brands to our database real quick. But before I do that, if I want to add stuff to my inside the admin panel, if I wanted to add some data, what do I need to do?
You have to register the models in the admin pie.
Yep. So from models, import brand car. And does anybody remember the syntax to register this?
Admin.site.register.
.register. And then how do I add the brand and car? Is it just like brand car?
I think you need 2 separate statements.
Or can it be in an array?
Oh, maybe.
Let's see if that works. So if I want to use the admin panel, I need to create a super user. So I need Python manage.py, create super user. Tom at email. All right, so I just created a super user. And now I'm running the server. I'm going to open up a new tab. Go to admin panel, TA pre, 1, 2, 3. And now we have our cars brands there. So let's add some brands. Tesla, Rivian, just gonna do all electric vehicles. What's the other one? What's the other electric one that's coming out?
Lucid Motors.
Lucid, that's it. All right, so now, okay. So I just added a couple of brands. So now in here, I need to loop through all the brands. What's the syntax to, what's like the Jinja 2 syntax to inject Python into an HTML template? Is it like for brand in all brands?
Don't you
Something
need like the the percentage sign on the outside of each?
Yep. So it looks like I need the percentage sign, and I also need the ending statement. So N4. So if you don't know Ruby on Rails or Ruby, they like all their statements have like end statements. So where Python, it's all indexed. Ruby, they have end statements for everything. So this is kind of just a random fact about that. So, and now if I want to list all the brands, say like H4, I think I need double brand.name. Is that what it is for my model? Can't remember. Yep, brand's name. So inside of my views, I'm grabbing all the brands by doing brand.objects.all. I'm rendering that brands HTML. and I'm passing in all brands dictionary right here. So for brand and all brands, display the brand name, then N4. So if I refresh this, there we go. We have Tesla, Rivian, Lucid. Cool. But what if, okay, so now I want to go to, maybe I want a link that goes to the brand detail. So I want these to be links, and I click on that link and it goes to, you know, brands 1, and it should be the Tesla brand, as well as I want it also just to display all the models associated with that brand. So let's go back to our URLs and create a path to int brand ID, something like that. We could say brand detail. And now go to our view, create a brand detail, def brand detail, takes in the request brand ID, and we grab the brand by doing brand.objects dot is a get, where ID equals brand ID. But I also want to include, well, before I do that, I'm just going to return render the request brand detail.html, and I want that brand and that individual brand. So now I'll go to my templates, brand underscore detail.html. I can do HTML boilerplate. So as I'm creating all these HTML templates, I don't want to keep on creating the head and doc type, all that stuff. So what can I do?
Create a base HTML and then export it to your other ones.
All right, so I'm going to create a base HTML and HTML boilerplate. And then right here, what is this? What do I need to add there? So I need to inject all those other
block content.
Yeah, block content. An end block. All right. And then let's, for brands, let's actually title. All right. So now for brands, I can get rid of all of this. And what does this look like? Is it extends base.html or something like that?
I think your base HTML needs to be in like single quotes.
Like so. Oh, yeah, it looks like it. Like that?
I think so.
All right. And now in here, I can do the block content. And then end block. All right. Now, if I just refresh this, go back to brands, probably going to get an error. Yeah. So I got an error right here. Looks like I probably forgot a comma. All right. I'm still might get an error. Okay, cool. It's still working. So we got our base working, but now let's go ahead and mess with the brand brand detail page. So brand We'll say this is brand.name. And I think that's good for right now. I just want to see if this works. So inside of our, I'm going to close that, close that, close that, bring that over here. All right, so we've got our brand, displays the brand detail, passes in that brand, and just displays the name. All right, but now we want to make this a link on the brand page or brands page. All right, so how do we make a link? So a tag, and then we could say href equals, and we can make it a named route, URL, brand detail, and we could say brand ID equals brand.id. I think that should work. Uh-oh. Could not parse remainder brand detail from brand detail. Where is it? So right here. Oh, I see what I did.
Quote.
Thank you. Let's refresh that. Okay, cool. But now it's like that. Maybe I don't want that. Does that still work? There we go. So I got a Tesla. Great. Starting to work. Rivian and Lucid. But when I go to Tesla and Rivian and Lucid, I want it to also not just display the brand. I also want it to display all the models in that brand. So first thing we need to do is actually create some models for that. So I'm going to add some. So model, I'll just do model, let's say like Roadster, and make that Tesla. Uh-oh. What do we have here? Object has no attribute car.
Earlier, I don't know if it matters, but you had changed your F string somewhere to .car when you'd previously had it .models.
Yep. Let's see that. So inside, where is that? My models. Yep. So that should work now. Refresh it. There we go. If I look at cars, that should still be there. Let's add a car. Model S. Model X. Model Y. Model 3. Let's add one more. Cyber. Is it one word?
It's one word.
Whatever. Let's see. Edit it. All right. So now when I come back here to Tesla, I want it to display all the brands, or I'm sorry, all the models. So how can I do that? Does anybody have any
You do
suggestions?
your model list HTML.
So I'm currently in the brand detail HTML, and I will also want it to display all the models within the brand detail. So how would so if I wanted to do the model detail or the model, HTML template, I'm not quite sure how I load two HTML templates within one another. So how can I load the models of that brand within the brand detail?
Could you just loop through the brand object and with to all the I forget the related key.
So, and that would that be in the HTML template?
Oh no, probably not in the template.
So if I did, yeah, I'm not brand dot cars dot first dot model. I'm just messing around right now. Look at that. I'm getting roadster right there. Pretty interesting, right? So if I go back and just do the brand name, so technically I can do, I just want to see if this is going to work. There's a couple ways. Let's see, for car and brand dot cars, and for make a div. Let's do just a p tag. Oh. And do car dot model. Uh-oh. Relate object is not iterable. What if I do car brand cars dot all? There we go. So it looks like I'm doing queries within my HTML template. So you can do it this way, or we can do it down here, all like brand cars. It goes brand dot objects dot all.
Put Brando.
I love Brando. Dot all. Oh no, I'm sorry. Pretty much the same thing right here. And then do dot cars dot all. And this will grab me all the brand cars here. So you can kind of look if I just print that off and do a refresh. You can see all the brand cars right here, the Cybertruck, the Model 3, Model Y, Model X. And then I can just add that to here, brand cars. Something like that. And then instead of doing this part, I can pretty much do the same thing. Let's do a, so for car and brand cars, and I got that. There's a couple ways you can do it. So you can do two queries by grabbing all the brand cars and just add that to the dictionary and pass that into the template. Or you can do a like inline querying inside of the HTML template.
Would either of those two methods be preferred, or is it pretty much just preference?
It's from from a performance standpoint, I actually don't know, because they're both still doing a query, but in here you're just doing like an extra query versus it in the template. I'd probably do it this way, and get rid of that. But either or, it's not going to make or break anything.
If we were to use the Django REST framework, then we would have to use React, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I
Can
think
I-
so.
So like when we utilize Django REST framework, is it only when we really want to like, incorporate like a user and a login and stuff like that, or like authorization or something? Or is it just an easier way to do Django?
Django REST framework is specific to using REST APIs and like doing a JSON response. So yeah, you don't need to use Django REST framework if you're using like a full stack Django app like we're doing now.
I forgot about all that stuff. Yeah. Okay.
And you don't have to use Django REST framework at all.
That's more work.
It just depends. Depends on what you consider more work. You have to learn a new library, which is Django REST framework. Now it's definitely less lines of code.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you can say.
Yeah, it just depends on what you're comfortable with. So don't feel like you have to use Django REST framework. All right. So we've got a brand detail. Now next, let's actually go to, let's see if we can add a new brand from the app instead of from the admin. So the next thing we need to do is do brands/new. What is this? Is it new brand? New brand. All right. And then down here, we'll want to create a new brand by doing def new brand request if request.method equals post form. We're going to need a brand form, so we're going to have to create this request.post if form.is valid and brand equals form.save commit equals false, then brand.save, and then we can actually redirect to that brand detail page. Turn redirect, which we're going to have to import d equals brand.id. And if we're not doing a post request, else we just want to display a form, brand form, and return render the request brand form, which we have to create. .html. And then we're going to pass in the form, and we can say like the type of request. It's going to be a new, because we're going to be creating a new brand. So the next, we're going to, in our forms.
Real quick, you're missing a comma in your URL.
In my URL.
Yeah, the second URL.
Yep, thank you. So next, we just created our forms. We're going to from Django import the forms module. From Django.db, we're going to import the models. And from Django.forms, import fields. From models, import the brand and the car. And now we can create the class brand form forms.model model form, because this is a form that's related to a model. Class meta model that we're using this form for is the brand. Fields equals, the only thing we're really needing is the name. Great. Let's just go ahead and create the car form as well while we're here. Car. And then instead of name, we'll have the model and the brand. And last, let's just create this template real quick, brand form, and then we'll go ahead and take a quick break. So here, we'll have to extend the base. I'm just going to copy this over. Delete that.
I think your second form had a typo in the title or in the name.
Oh, geez, yeah. So there we go. And so in our brand form, we can create, let's do like an H1.
It still says car from, and it's got a comma after it.
Attention to detail, Tom. There we go. All right. So in our views, we're passing in the form and the type. So we can say type brand, and then we're creating a form. And the form as Pete. And we can say the method equals post, it's post request. What else do we need when we're creating a form?
Submit button.
Yep, save or submit, and type equals submit. What else do we need when we're dealing with Django forms?
CSRF token.
Yep, we need that CSRF token. All right. So we've got the brand form. So we're not, so from forms, import brand form. Might as well import the car form. We're going to need that. Everything's working. All right. So when we go to brands, I want to have like a button that takes us to the new, to create a new brand. So we can say href equals URL brand form. Actually, that would be new brand. I think that's all I would need. And then new, create a new, I think that's it. If I refresh this, hopefully it create new brand. Great. Just say forward. Redirect is not defined. Have yet to import that. So is it render redirect? If I refresh that, resubmit it, there we've got our brands, which is forward. If I just go to, I did two of them. So we're gonna have to create the delete portion of that because I don't want two of them. But with that, so we just created a method to create a new brand. Let's go ahead and create a way to edit and delete that brand as well. So in our URLs, we can say brand new, and now we can do brand edit, brand edit, and I spelled edit wrong, and then also brand delete, brand delete. All right, so with that, we can go to brand edit, which is very similar to that of brand new. The only difference is, let's see, let's come down here. Let's just actually create it from scratch. def edit or brand edit. Takes in the request, brand ID. We want to grab that brand from the database, brand.objects dot get ID equals brand ID. And then we say, hey, pretty much if the request is the same, pretty much everything is relatively same from here. So if method.post, we want the form, the brand form, request.post, but we also want to pass in the instance of that brand. We could say, hey, is the brand form valid by editing it? Commit save, commit false. And then there we go. So everything else is the same, but then down here, we also want to pass in the instance of the brand for the edit brand. In the brand form, and instead of new, it's going to be edit. And that should be that for the brand form, and we'll test that, but yeah, we'll actually test that right now. All right. Uh-oh, path. Keep forgetting. Let's see if that's working. All right. And now in the brand, since we created a new brand, let's create here in the brand detail page, we want the brand name, but let's also create a way to edit and delete that brand. So we can say from here, instead of edit, there's a brand edit, edit brand.name. Let's see if that works. So if I go to Tesla, oh, what's going on? Reverse brand edit with no arguments found. Oh, so brand edit, we need the brand ID. If I refresh that, do we get a reverse? There we go. So we've got edit Tesla, and we can also see all of the H2, say models. Models. Brand name, models. Should add some separation. Go Tesla models. Now we can go to edit Tesla. Tesla edit. If I save that, we've got Tesla edit, edit Tesla edit. That's funny. Go back. So now we can edit Tesla. And so, yeah. Questions about the edit brand?
I have a question.
Yep.
In the return where it says form equals brand form, instance equals brand, where did instance come from?
So the instance, so the brand is coming from here where we're grabbing that individual brand, and the instance is just a parameter that we can pass in. So
did we define that, or is it built in? Or?
No, that's just we're literally passing in the instance of the brand, and we have to define what that instance is. So that's just part of the brand form inside the model form. So if we look at the model form Django, if you look at instance, it takes in this, think of it as a variable but it's a parameter. We're defining that instance. Saying,
So
hey,
that's just basically pointing to that. So yeah, like, so you grabbed that object. So it's basically just saying this object is It's just referencing that object, right?
Yep. So it's not like an empty form. It's like, hey, there's already an existing instance of this object. So let's add it and let's inject that into the form. Yep. All right. So the last one we can do is delete, brand delete. So we can def brand delete. That also takes in the request, the brand ID. Again, we can say, hey, if the request method equals a post request, we can do brand equals brand. We're grabbing that specific brand.
Your delete after brand is there's a typo.
Delete, thank you. Brand ID, and we can just brand.delete that, and then we could just redirect, redirect to the brands page. Is it brands or brands? Because we need the route of brands. Now if we go to brand detail here, I think we need a post or like an actual form. So so for the form here, say, hey, there's a form method equals post. And that form has an action on it. And the URL, we want the brand delete. And the brand ID equals brand ID, or we can just do brand.id because there's only one. We need that CSRF token. And we could just have an input in here. Or a button. Delete brand.name. Type equals submit. Let's see if this works. So we've created a form that has a method of post. And if we come over here, we can delete Tesla, or let's actually go back. Let's create a back button as well. Instead of, let's go to brand. Is it brands? Back. Because I don't necessarily want to. So here's the forward. If I want to delete forward, there we just deleted the forward. And create a new brand. Cool. So everything seems to be working. Edit. And if we want these to be the same, I think it's an input. No input. actually, yeah, it's still the same. Just keep it a button right now. Cool. All right, so we have our brands. Now we have to go ahead and create our details or our, so we have Tesla. Now we actually have to create our ability to view the different model details and edit them and all of that. So where's the brand detail?
So for the assessment, it's going to be like CRUD operations for whatever, like our version of brands and models, whatever it ends up being.
Yep. Exactly. And you're going to need to display everything. So you have a brand Tesla or whatever, and then you're also going to have to display everything on the same page, similar to like what we're doing here. All right. So we have our brand ID. Let's go ahead. Cars. So instead of brand ID, we'll have car ID. We have car detail. Next, inside of our views, we can have like all cars, but yeah, should we have all cars? Yeah, we'll get to that later. So def, that's what we want. So we can just do car detail, takes in the request, car ID, and actually, this should be a nested route. So yeah, let's do brand detail / cars / car ID. So the brand ID followed by cars, followed by car ID. All right. So in here, we'll actually have to have the brand ID as well. And yeah, let's do that. And we could do it a different way. I'm just trying to emulate what you're going to see tomorrow. All right, so now we don't even really need the brand ID, but let's just do it. Brand equals brand.objects.all, not get brand ID. ID equals brand ID. It's a car ID. And then let's just return render the request, the car detail page.html, which we haven't created yet. And I don't know if I'm going to use the brand yet. I might as well. Brand as well as the car. And the car. All right, so now we can create our template, car detail.html. Let's look at the brands detail page. So you can say like car model. We're going to need to do this, but I'm just going to cancel that out right now. So yeah, let's just say model. Let's just see if this works. All right, we have our base HTML that we're passing in, and we're just going to be displaying the model. And now, inside the brands detail, where we're listing all of these out, we want to change that into a link. So we can change that into an href. And what we're going to need here is URL. What is that URL? Is it car detail? But here we're going to need the brand underscore ID equals brand.id, and the car underscore ID equals the car.id. Car ID is referenced here. So for car and brands.cars.all, we're going to link to the brand ID.brand.id. We're passing in the brand in here. And then the car.id is referencing this for car in all brand.cars.all. And so these brand ID and car ID is passed into the car detail URL. So the brand ID is there, the car ID is there, displays the car, runs the car detail view, comes into here, the brand ID gets passed in there, the car ID gets passed into here. We're grabbing the brand and we're grabbing the car, and we're passing the brand and car within the dictionary and rendering the car detail page. We come up here, we're rendering the car. We're just displaying the car model right now. Hopefully everything works. Great. We have the Cybertruck. Click there. The Cybertruck. Great. Cool.
Is it because it's nested that you can't just do brand.id and car.id? You have to do the brand underscore ID equals brand.id?
Yep, exactly. So where'd it go? Brand detail. So yeah, right here, it doesn't know. So if I got rid of that, and I don't think this actually still might work because it might remember placement, but let's try that. But yeah, so it still remembers it. But if I were to switch these, I don't think it'll work. See how it switches the placement.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep. So that's why it's just better just to, hey, since right now we can change these orders if we wanted to, because it's like, what the hell's going on? Car underscore ID equals car ID. So right here, it doesn't matter of placement because we're explicitly saying, hey, the car ID within that URL is equals this car ID. So if we refresh that, it still works. But if it only has one, like the brand delete, it only has that one, it automatically knows that that's what it's referring to. But it's probably good to get used to just actually explicitly saying, hey, what in the URL pattern this brand ID is referencing. All right. So next, we'll have to do the new, let's add a new car. So if I can do that, cars / new. Is it new brand, new car? Come over here to views. Let's add a new car, def new car. And that takes in the request. the brand ID. All right. Whoop. And just like we'll need the brand dot objects dot get ID equals brand ID, because we want to see what brand this is actually associated with. If the request dot method equals post form equals car form. The request dot post we're actually passing in. If the form dot is valid, car equals form dot save commit equals false. Car dot save. Then we can redirect to the car detail, where the brand ID equals the brand dot ID, and the car ID equals the car dot ID. Else, we want a new form. Form equals car form. And then return, render, request, car form.html. And what type of form we want. Form, and then the type. Say this is a new car form. See if this works.
Misspell render on 58.
Render. Thank you. See if I have any more errors. So we have new car, grabs that brand. So it looks like, all right. So then we want to redirect back to the car detail. That's why we need that brand ID, like so. So if I click here, let's add that new button there. So if I go to brand detail, I can edit. Where should I add this new? So we have brands down here, new brand. What if I want to add a new car? Should I add that in the brand detail page? No. Yeah, it's actually added in the brand detail page. So right here, let's add it down here. URL, new car. Create new and name model. Let's see if that works. So if I go back here, refresh, end block expected empty. Oh, did I delete that? So I needed that N4. New car, no arguments found. So the new car, looks like I need the brand ID. So I need to pass in the brand underscore ID equals brand ID. Let's refresh that. Create new Tesla. Just gonna add like a line in the middle there. Now if I click here, car form HTML. Got to create that car form. So I've got a brand form. Let's create a car underscore form.html. And here we can copy that. New model. I think that should work. If I go back, refresh. There we go. New model. And I can create a new model. I can select down here. But I don't like, so I'm already in, let's see what I'm looking at. If I can make this a little more detailed. Where is some brands? Don't need the brand form, don't need the brand detail, get rid of the form. So down here, I'm passing in the form. I'm also passing in the type, but technically here I'm in the Tesla brand. So add a new Tesla model, but here it's telling it doesn't, there's no indication that I'm in the Tesla, and I still have to select drop down. Maybe I want this default to already be show Tesla here because that's kind of what I'm making. And also maybe I want new Tesla model up here. So here, in addition to form, or I would say model, or no, brand, I'll add the brand down here as well. So when I do to go to car form, it says new brand dot name. Let's look over here and I refresh that, new Tesla model, but here it's not. I want that to be default. So the initial, so when I'm creating a new form, it's coming down here. I want to add the initial value of here. Brand. So it's taking in that brand, and the initial value is going to be that brand object that's in that brand form. So if I click back, I do a hard refresh. Uh-oh, initial, I spelled initial wrong. Now if I refresh that, now it automatically selects Tesla for me as default. So if I refresh it, create a new Tesla model, it's automatically, if I go back to Lucid, create a new Lucid model, it automatically defaults to Lucid. Does anybody know the new Lucid model? Something crazy. I know someone does, come on. Lucid Air, that makes sense. All right, so that works. If I refresh that, there's my Lucid Air. Cool. All right, so we're able to create a new model from a brand. All right. The last couple of things we need to create is instead of, we do /edit car edit. So we can edit a car now. So just like we did with edit brand, we'll pretty much want to do the same thing. So here, very similar, but instead of, we also want to pass in the car ID, where brand or car equals car dot objects dot get ID equals car underscore ID. And this isn't a new car, this is edit car or car edit. All right, so grabbing the car. Now here we want to do the instance of the edit form is the car. Everything's the same, brand, great. And the edit, instead of doing the initial, we'll just pass in the instance because that will also pass in the same. And here, instead of edit, great. So now if we go to car detail, we'll want to add brand detail, brand form, brand detail. Want to edit. Have some edit right here. Car edit, brand ID, because brand ID, car underscore ID equals car dot ID. Edit car model. So we've got the car edit, passing the brand ID and the car ID corresponds to the brand ID and the car ID in the URL. If I refresh that, there we go. Lucid R2, save, cool. So we have edit. Now the last one. Is delete. All right, delete, edit, delete. Views. So now, just like we did brand delete, we'll do with car delete, but we'll add car. Also add brand underscore ID with it. And then where should we redirect? Should we redirect to, yeah, I guess the brand's detail? Yeah. Brand's detail, brand underscore ID equals brand underscore ID. Go to car detail. Again, this is going to need probably a form. Post action brand delete. It should be car delete. And here we'll also add the car ID equals car.id. Delete car.model. Hopefully this works. So when I come to click on this button, delete, it goes to car delete, which calls this, goes to that page real quick, calls that method, car delete, grabs the car ID. The method is a post, grabs that car ID or that car object, deletes that object and redirects to the brand detail page, because the brand detail page displays all the cars associated with that brand. It passes in that brand ID. So let's see if this works. All right. So yep, Lucid Motors doesn't have any cars. Error again. Save. Edit. To. Great. All right. And let's go back. Looks like brands. Okay. That looks good. Edit Chevrolet. It's like, oh, I meant to do Aston Martin. Cool. I don't know if that's the right one. Cool. And if you want to, you could add another just to grab all the cars in the entire, so brands / cars, then here, def cars, request, cars, or all cars equals cars dot objects, sorry, car dot objects dot all, then return render request cars.html and a dictionary of cars / cars. If I wanted to do that, cars.html, where's the brands? So I can do brands, very similar. Cars for car in all cars. And this might be a little bit difficult, but let's just do p tag car.model. And then under brands, let's just add another view all cars. So yeah, I created it in the brands. I just created another link to view all the cars, and it goes to the cars URL here, runs the cars method. The view method comes down here, just grabs all the cars and renders that cars HTML, comes up here. I guess I can say all cars. For car and all cars, just display the car model. So if I go back, uh-oh, where are all the cars? Did I mess up something? Brand.cars. Oh, I see what I did. There we go. So those are all the cars. And I wonder, so we have all the cars. Are we able to get the brand ID associated with that car? Does anybody know if we can do that? So if we wanted to link to that specific URL, if you wanted to link to that specific, it'd be brand car detail. And the brand underscore ID, would it be the car.brand.id? And the car underscore ID equals the car.id. Wonder if that's how it works. Maybe. Let's see it. Yep. So if I click on like the Vantage, I'm extracting the brand ID from the car object. So car.brand.id is the brand ID of that car. And I'm passing that in the brand detail, brand ID, car ID. So there we go. Any questions? I think that's it. And I guess it'd be good to add back buttons to all those if you didn't.
I have a quick question. I remember when we had done some of this before, we did like in our views, if request.method equals get, when would we do that? Because I just don't remember why we did that.
Request.method equals get.
I feel like we've done that instead of post.
I don't remember. Does anybody remember specifically what challenge we did that in? Because I don't recall doing that.
It's probably not a big deal then.
I'm trying to think. Now, if you were using a class view, you would define a get method for get requests versus post requests. But we barely covered that. I think Ankur covered that yesterday.
That honestly might be what I'm thinking of.
All right. Yeah, let's go ahead and take a, let me just